Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Campaign Diary. So we have made it to episode 2. It has been about a month as promised, and here we are. If you are not caught up on last time, I will do a brief recap. The party, which is comprised of Freya, the stout paladin, Desna and Escafé, the chaotic monk and rogue, Taklak, the adventurous sorcerer, and finally, Flint Strider, the charming pirate. The party's main goal up until this point has been to find the ship of Flint Strider, former pirate captain, and reclaim it from an evil vampire named Markov Sterik. At this point in their arc, they have reached the location of Sterik, the city of Engelfall, which I designed to be fantasy, medieval, stereotypical New York. That was sort of the idea, and I think I did a pretty good job. It has a very dark and brooding atmosphere, which I really enjoyed. At this point, the party has spent most of their time in the wilds or in a charming fishing village, so having this more dark, gothic metropolis was a nice change of pace. However, one thing that I'm kind of disappointed in myself for is not taking advantage of this metropolis. It felt like just a big town that was skinned to look like a city. Cities in D&D should feel alive. More random encounters can really help with that. But this city didn't have a lot of random encounters. I did have one that was pretty cool, which we will get into. But at the end of the day, it felt like just a big town, not like a bustling city. It didn't feel like there was a lot going on. And whenever they reach another huge city area, I will change that so that there are more random encounters. Big tip, random encounters can make cities feel very alive, very active, and can immerse your party in that kind of experience. But anyway, back to the story. The party have reached Engelfall, this gothic city, and at this point, I had a problem. The player behind Flint Strider couldn't make it to the first session, and a lot of it was based on his character. So I had to do a lot of last minute rewrites, which, yeah, sometimes that is not fun. And honestly, here's my best advice. If you can't do a quick rewrite of the session, I do recommend canceling, or at least moving it back a couple hours, because there is nothing worse than a session that is completely rocky and that falls apart because you have nothing planned. That stuff does happen, and you need to be ready for that. I do now have backup plans just in case a central player character is absent. In this case, I did have encounters, a boss, a storyline in my head, but I didn't think I'd have to use it until later. However, I decided to bring it in early because, well, one of the players was missing, and I had to delay the central main quest line in this area, this metropolis of Engelfall. So instead, the party reached the city. Flint, the pirate captain, goes off to investigate where the vampire is, while the rest of the party have a little bit of free time. Instead of focusing the session around Flint, I focused the session around Eska and Desna Faye, who, in a previous session, had made a deal with a mysterious figure that resulted in them getting a mark on their hand. It was a really creepy moment for the party because they had never really suspected this figure of being anything supernatural. Up until that point, he had just been a normal bard. He was kind of weird and talked kind of funny, but they never thought that he was anything more than just a bard. But he asked one of the Fae twins, Desna, if he would help him in the future. Desna said yes. They shook hands, and then, well, Desna got a mark on his hand, which seems demonic in nature, and the party were really freaked out by that because, again, up until that point, this bard figure, Ether Dishevely, he had been a perfectly normal guy. I was going to save this plot line until later. I was going to let it fester, but you know what? We have some time, so let's bring it up here and allow the party to investigate this mark further. Who is this bard, Ether Dishevely, with this funny name and weird cadence of speech? After some exploring around the city, the party finally got a lead. They went to a mansion which belongs to a woman named Garatha the Kind, which obviously if someone is named the Kind, they're not going to end up being so kind, and the party were automatically suspicious of her. Yeah, maybe I showed my hand a little bit too much there because, you know, I wasn't trying to be entirely subtle. This woman was creepy from the outset. She's connected to a demonic symbol in some way, shape, or form, not on the surface level, but people have told the party that they have seen this Garatha woman associated with this demonic rune, so the party know there's something suspicious about her. So I decided, you know what, throw out all of the subtlety, let's have her be creepy from the outset. And I think it really, really worked out. I do think that you don't always need to hold back on your party. Sometimes being creepy with an NPC right at the beginning can really offset a party. Your players expect things to be hidden from them until they're slowly revealed. But revealing that an NPC is suspicious right at the forefront can really catch them by surprise. I also decided to bring in the party's weakness: children. So yeah, I brought in kids. Garatha has a bunch of child servants, essentially, and the party felt really bad for them. They met this little girl who was really terrified of this witch woman and was trying to desperately get the party to help, and obviously the party wanted to help her. It was a great moment between the party of really deciding, yeah, these guys are heroes. I like this smaller scale, more subtle moment when the party really decides their morality. Like, they're going to help these kids. They're not just going to take the information this witch is offering and then leave. They're going to help these children out, even if it costs them valuable information on this demonic rune. I really love that. In the last campaign, the party's rallying moment, their call to action, their heroes moment, it was in a much more epic fashion. They entered into a huge city, fought a demon, it was a big old battle. That was their call to action moment, and obviously big battles like that are epic. But I also like these smaller scale moments for a D&D party. It keeps the escalation at a lower point, because often I see D&D games suffer from an escalation problem. Things escalate far too quickly, and that sort of small scale neighborhood adventure is lost. The investigation, the intrigue of smaller, less extreme threats fades away as characters level up. Slowing down, allowing them to have the experience of fighting these more smaller scale threats with more personal conflicts, I think is a lot of value in D&D games. So I was really happy with this moment. So anyway, the party decide they're going to fake working with this woman, they're going to come back to the house, and they're going to kill her. Great stuff. This lady is clearly creepy, she's clearly magical. The sorcerer Taklak did a little bit of arcana checking and realized that this woman emanates dark, necrotic magic, so there's clearly something up with her, so they make their choice. As they return to their inn, they meet the first major NPC in Engelfall, and that is Caroline the Changeling, the first Changeling character I've ever made for D&D, NPC or otherwise. I'm going to talk more about her during my analysis at the end, but I really like this character, and the party really liked her too. She's essentially like this goth changeling. She has this short black hair, goth makeup, eyeshadow, black lipstick, the whole 9 yards. She's just this edgy, medieval, goth, teenage changeling, and the party really liked her. She is one of the kids that is trapped under Garatha the Witch Mother. She snuck out and is trying to get the party to help her and the other kids to escape. She's the older sister type, the rebellious one. I decided to introduce her here instead of after the Garatha fight for a couple of reasons. The main one is that I wanted the party to get acquainted with her. If they get acquainted with her before the fight, I felt like it added more risk. Like, in order to help this person that you now like, you need to beat Garatha, whereas if they were introduced to her afterwards, the risk is gone, the tension is released, there's not as much weighing on this relationship between the players and the NPC. So that's why I chose to introduce her at this point. And I think that's a great tip for when you're introducing NPCs. If you really want the party to care, give them a conflict to be resolved. If there's no conflict, the party are not as likely to care as much since there's not as much weight. So anyway, party meet with Caroline and they head off to face the Witch Mother Garatha, and it is a pretty intense fight. This was the first time I ever used a creature with multiple forms. Garatha's original form is a high elf, but she turns into this creepy witch banshee looking thing. I used some card art from Gwent that looked so good, and I think that just that made this fight really special. Seeing a creature change into something much more scary is just a great sensation for the players. Whenever I say, hold on guys, I'm pulling out her second form, the party automatically like sit up in their chairs. I can see their eyes going wide. I can hear players going, oh crap, what now? It's great. It builds that tension that I'm always talking about, builds that suspense. It's really good for getting players invested in a bad guy. Even though Garatha was only here for one session, the party really didn't like her, especially because she was hurting Caroline, and the party quickly fell in love with her. So yeah, Garatha had to go. The fight was good. It was essentially a reskin Night Hag. I gave her some extra abilities, changed around some of her spells. It was the Night Hag versus 3 party members, because at this point Freya was also gone too. So I had to rebalance the fight a little bit, but at the end of the day, it was a pretty good battle. I think it was balanced very well. The party can be hard to balance for. It's interesting because last campaign, the party were a pretty standard adventuring group, a tank, a healer, 3 DPS. Here, all of the party are damage dealers with a couple of healing spells like tossed in there with the paladin and the ranger. But for the most part, everyone is just doing a lot of damage while not having that much health. So it's really weird balancing around a bunch of glass cannons. You just need to keep in mind that when you're scaling up or scaling down monsters, that the damage doesn't outdo the total hit points of the party by too much. Obviously, there needs to be risk. The monsters should be able to down them, and if the party are not making good decisions, monsters should be able to kill them. But don't make it so easy for monsters to kill them that the party can TPK on a trash mob fight, because that would suck. Of course, Garatha is not a trash mob. She is essentially a boss, so yeah, she was a difficult fight, and it did end with a pretty killer twist. After the party reduced her to very minimal health, Garatha used the magic jar spell, at least is what I believe it's called, to take over the body of Eska Faye. Now I'm going to describe the final moments of the fight because I thought this was great. Taklak, the wild magic sorcerer, is using a homebrew wild magic table, or more accurately, he's using wild magic. I'm using the homebrew wild magic table. One of those features on the table is that when you roll, I believe it's a 66 or a 67, doesn't really matter, but anyway, one of the things that could happen is that a little explosive fairy pops up, blows up, and hurts everything in like a 10 feet radius for like 2d6 damage. It's not that much damage, but at the end of the fight, the party watch as the witch dies, quote unquote dies. She falls over, she disintegrates, she's gone. Okay, great, woo, days 1, but the fairy is still there. And Desna was standing right next to the witch and right next to the fairy. Because he's a monk, he punches things. So anyway, the fairy blows up and Desna only has like 5 health left. He goes down. Now at this point, I have Eska roll the save, and she does not succeed. Her body has been possessed. But I don't describe it as possession. I don't say, your body has been possessed. I say, you find yourself suddenly transported into a dark chamber. You can't see anything around you. And you feel like you're no longer in control of your senses. Like something else has taken your form, and it no longer belongs to you. And at that point, the party starts to slowly realize what's happened, and they start to slowly realize that the witch is in Eska's body, and Desna, her brother, is at 0 hit points and is knocked out onto the ground because the fairy blew him up by accident. So, I describe Eska, quote-unquote Eska, walking over to her brother and stabbing him, which obviously takes him down 2 death saving throws. He's 1 death saving throw away from dying. At this point, I have Taklak roll initiative against the possessed Eska, who does not have much health left, and Taklak has a few spell slots. At this point, we have a quick draw. Taklak versus the possessed Eska. It is a really cool moment. I love me a quick draw. Western, samurai, doesn't matter. It's great. Of course, in D&D, it's not the same because usually you're not one-shotting a monster and the monsters aren't one-shotting you. It's more like whoever draws first. But keep in mind, here at level 5, the party aren't overflowing with hit points and they just had a fight. So here, Taklak and Eska, the possessed Eska, are both at pretty low health. Whoever draws first is going to hit. So, Taklak rolls higher on initiative miraculously, even though Eska is a rogue and has really good dex. I mean, I don't know why, but Tally, the girl who plays Eska, has awful luck with initiative. She's always near the bottom no matter what. But anyway, initiative is rolled, and Taklak's player Brandon surprises me. He uses Quicken Spell to cast Scorching Ray and uses an action to use a medicine check on Desna to stop him from dying. He takes down the possessed Eska with the Scorching Ray and manages to heal Desna, stabilize Desna, all in the same turn. It was miraculous and very clever, very well played. Now at this point, Eska is knocked out, but she is not yet in control of her body because of the magic jar spell. And yeah, they still need to get out of there. It's really bad. They have a possessed, unconscious Eska who's about to wake up and probably start killing them again. They need to find the magic jar that's holding Eska's soul, and they need to get the kids out of there because due to that Scorching Ray hitting a jar of oil earlier in the fight, the place is probably going to burn down, or at least there's a fire spreading, so they gotta go. So it was a really tense moment with Caroline leading Desna through the house to find the jar containing his sister's soul. Taklak and the kids restraining the possessed Eska so she doesn't try to, murder everybody. Everyone running out of the house as fast as they can, getting all the kids out. Caroline getting out, Desna getting out last minute with the jar, smashing the jar so that Eska gets her body back. It was intense. But at the end of it all, everything worked out pretty well. The lost children are returned to their parents with the exception of Caroline, who seems to have no parents at all, which means that she decides to stay with the party, and they have a little NPC buddy to come with them. I was really happy with their reception to Caroline, and I'll talk more about her at the end where I talk more about NPCs. Yup, I think that was a really good session, especially for something I had to pull out of thin air at the last minute because the player was absent. I don't think it was perfect, but I think it was damn good. I was not expecting it to be that clean, and I was worried I would have to cancel. So I'm really proud of what happened during that session where they fought the Witch Mother. Next session, we're back on track. Everyone is here. Flint and Freya, their players come back. The whole party's back together. The party members who were there for the last session, a little side quest, fill them in on what happened. Flint realizes that he needs to work with some sort of con artist to get his ship back. He's been put in contact with a man named Red James, whose real name is Victor Gondorf. He's a con artist working out of a tavern in Engelfall, and he can help them get the ship back from the evil Markov Sterik, because Sterik is a powerful vampire. Maybe fighting him head-on is not a great idea. Conning him out of the ship, though, might be more convenient. So the party meet up with this Victor Gondorf. They have a little fun bar fight where things escalate a little quickly when the pirate captain Flint draws his gun on a guard. He does manage to intimidate the guard, and I did have him roll a performance/deception check because Flint's player, Caden, told me that he does not intend to just shoot an innocent guard. He doesn't want to do that. So I had him actually roll a deception check to convince the guard that he is trying to kill him, and then roll the intimidation check to see if it works in intimidating the guard into giving up. He does succeed on both, so that was pretty cool. So at this point, the whole party has to run away from the tavern with Victor because the guards are coming to investigate a drawn gun in a bar fight. Victor is the definition of that Hollywood con artist, the charming thief. I really love his character. If you want an example of what I try to play him like, Sully from Uncharted is a great example. I like the older, gentlemanly, but somewhat jokey, experienced thief, especially contrasted with the more inexperienced party members. So he was a fun character. The party didn't fall in love with him like they did Caroline, which I was expecting. He was a lot more prickly than she was. Caroline is like this likable but edgy goth girl. He is a thief. He steals from people. So it took the party a lot more time to get used to him and to like him, but he started to warm up to them later on down the line. Though they definitely didn't trust him given his profession, which is probably smart, and he actually complimented them on that, and that's one of the reasons that they started to get more allocated to him. Compliments and jokes. You want your party to like someone? Compliments and jokes. Those are the two things that will automatically get a character into your party's heart normally. Just don't overdo it, because then it's creepy. At this point, the party need to participate in the con. They're going to try to con Markov Starek out of the ship with a long and convoluted plot I'm really not going to explain here, but all that matters is the party's main role is that they need to attend a party and embarrass a guy. Essentially, the hot gossip is that this guy, his wife, cheated on him with Starek. And she is really mad that he found out because she's not the best person, and she is hiring people to embarrass him at a party. I stole this hook from Ginny D. I did make Puriel, the drow noblewoman, a little bit more evil in my campaign because I needed to tie her into Starek somehow, and this is how I decided to do it. She is a little bit more evil in my story, but I think that made her really fun. The party did not like working with her, but I think that made it really interesting. They were forced to work with someone that they did not like at all and hold their tongue and be respectful because she's a noblewoman and also because she's really important to the con. So anyway, they embarrassed the poor guy who is also a bit of an asshole, to be fair. I wanted to make it a little bit easy on them. And at this party, they also meet Markov for the first time. I wanted to have him be a bit of a duality of a character. He's got two sides, his formal pretend side and his savage, brutal pirate side. One side of him is going to parties, he's charming nobles, manipulating politics. The other side of him is beating the hell out of people. Here, they're being introduced to the politics side of him first, which to me might have been a bit of a risky move. It might have been smart to introduce the scary side of him, then surprise them by showing the party that he's not all just muscle and punching people, he can also be charming and manipulative. So maybe I should have reversed it, but that's just how the questline shook out, and I had to introduce this more formal side of him first, which I think was pretty good. Freya had to pretend to be this tiefling noblewoman, act graceful and noble and elegant, which is weird for her character because she is this very stern, no shits given paladin, and also a paladin, and she's talking to a vampire, so it's a really awkward dynamic, but I think the player behind Kyla did a great job playing up Freya's uncomfortableness with the situation. It was a great moment. Also, we did have this great image of Flint, the pirate captain, who got a ship stolen by this vampire, seething in the background and like putting his hand where his gun would be if he wasn't wearing a suit, just waiting to kill this asshole. It was a really fun dynamic. But anyway, they get back to the house, they let loose, they relax, the first part of the con is done, and at that point, I fake ending the session. I just say, and with that, we're gonna have Flint make a perception check. And at that moment, the party really knew something was up. Essentially, to make a long story short, Flint got the crap kicked out of him by Markov that night, who showed up in his room and just beat the crap out of him and broke his magical rifle in half. Which, if you want your party to hate a guy, have them break or steal one of their magical items. That will get that guy on their hate list. You want to be really evil? Have your bad guy steal their bag of holding. Your party will never forgive them. They will hunt that BBEG to the end of the universe if it means getting their bag of holding back. But that's not what I did. I had him break the magical rifle because I thought it would be a very powerful tool against him, and also he's not an idiot, so he would probably break something that could be used to kill him. And I wanted to make the fight a little bit more difficult on the party because that is a major ranged weapon, and Markov is a melee fighter, and I figured taking it out of commission, at least for now, would make the fight more interesting and more dynamic. This is also a consequence of something that happened earlier. The way Markov found out about the con is because one of the party members accidentally let Victor's name loose to the noblewoman. They didn't think anything of it, even though Victor is a known criminal and con artist, so known that he uses fake names and is often hiding and gambling in back alley taverns. So yeah, letting his name loose in front of the mistress of their enemy was probably a very bad idea. So yeah, as a consequence, Flint got the crap beaten out of him, and we got a little bit of a glimpse into what the vampires want. Markov wants Flint to kill Eska and Desna Faye, the Air Genasi twins who have that mark, and also members of Flint's party. In exchange, Markov would return Flint's ship to him. And yeah, it was a very sad moment for Flint. He had to turn away a deal for a ship, but he chose his friends, which I thought was a cool little bonding moment for the whole party. So at this point, the con is up. The jig is done. They've got to go. They've either got to leave the city or they've got to take out Markov, steal the ship, and get out of there that way. They come up with a plan alongside Victor and Caroline. Essentially, they're going to use Caroline as bait. They're going to have Caroline shapeshift into Markov's mistress, and they're going to have the rest of Victor's crew, Victor and his guys, they're going to fake a kidnapping using Caroline as the fake mistress to lure as many of Markov's guys away from his mansion as possible. Markov doesn't care enough about the mistress to go himself because he's an asshole, so the party will have a nice, easy opening to kill him. And even if he does go himself, it will allow them to get ready in his own home and set up an ambush if he returns, or when he returns. The planning phase of this was great. Just hearing the party plan out everything was awesome. Hearing them debate and panic, it was awesome. It was so good. It showed that they really cared. There's nothing that makes me happier than when my party are getting intense about planning a thing. Because when they're intense about it, that means that they care. They're invested. I feel like I've succeeded as a DM. So anyway, they begin the plan in the next session. The final battle against Markov. They head to the mansion, and Freya has a confrontation with a Von Wheel vampire. In my homebrew world, Von Wheel are these four-armed, almost insect-like creatures. They come from the same place that tieflings live in. They are natives of this area that tieflings colonized like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The tieflings settled in like this vale, and the Von Wheel hate tieflings. And this Von Wheel is no different. He really wants to kill Freya, and it's a pretty hard-fought battle, but it wasn't too hard because remember, they still have a pretty intense battle with Markov later on, so I didn't want to make the trash fights throughout the mansion too difficult, and they actually skipped like 2 of the fights, so that was cool. But at the end of that fight, they actually just pushed the guy into a cupboard and lock it because they didn't have time to fight him. They needed to fight off Markov and his other vampires. So they move on, and they know that Markov is a vampire, and a fully born vampire, as I call them, they can only be killed in their coffin, like it says in the stat block. Now, normal fledgling vampires, they can't be killed. They don't have to be killed in a coffin. They just need to be stabbed in the heart. But anyway, they need to find Markov's coffin in order to take care of him permanently, because if they don't, he is going to hunt them to the ends of the earth. So they find his coffin guarded by a wyvern. It was a great moment. Foundry has these opening doors. I've said this in the last episode if you've listened to that, but Foundry has these opening doors, and when they opened the door and saw a wyvern on the other side, they freaked the hell out. It was so good. But they need to get past this wyvern and also kill Markov, at the same time. They need to kill him and then have someone waiting next to the coffin. So either they fight the wyvern and risk alerting Crawford that there's someone trying to get his coffin, because wyverns aren't exactly quiet creatures. It's going to roar, it's going to scream, and it might alert Markov that there's something going on, or they just kill Markov and leave. But Flint wants revenge. Caden straight up said, like, no, we are finishing this. This is ending tonight. And it was a great moment. Flint is getting his revenge no matter what. Well, I don't think he's going to cost his friends, but still, he wants to kill this asshole, and he wants him to stay dead. So they come up with a crazy plan that I cannot believe worked. It worked out really well for them because of a lot of good dice rolls and frankly some decent planning. The rogue, Eska, she has a dagger that lets her teleport behind a large creature. The wyvern is a large creature, so she's going to teleport behind the wyvern. When Markov is at low health, she's going to go up there, teleport behind the wyvern, and stab him as the party kills him. It's going to be complicated, it's going to be close, it's going to be tight, but it could work. Now the party are planning this all out, and while they're planning, Flint's player, Caden, just says, I kick the door down, and I start blasting. He kicks the door down, shoots Markov, and Markov catches the bullet, which is a great way to start a fight. And I start the fight out with this really cool choir song, and it was loud and intense and deep and booming. The party liked it. It was awesome. If you want a boss to be intimidating, find a good boss theme. That is the key to your player's heart. Good music can really make or break a fight, and I think this fight had pretty good music. The party had to fight Markov as well as 2 of his vampire buddies. Each vampire had a different skill set. Markov is now brawler. He punches people, just punches them, grabs them, bites them, does whatever it takes to win. He doesn't even have a sword. There's a vampire blade dancer, as I called them, or blade master. He uses a sword. He's got 3 attacks with a blade, and he can dash around the battlefield very quickly. And finally, a vampire warlock. She has various magical spells. So they all have very different fighting styles. Obviously, Markov is the focus here. He's the big boss. He has legendary actions, everything, whole 9 yards, whereas the other 2 vampires are just normal fledglings. The party decide to split their attention. Taklak takes the sorceress, while Desna takes the blade master. Eska, Freya, and Flint, they're taking on Markov. It is really hard. These vampires are not messing around, and the room that they're fighting in is relatively small. It's not tiny, but it's not huge. It's like a small dinner room, and yup, it can get really rough on the party when there's not a lot of room to work with, especially when you have a powerful vampire warlock who's throwing around area of effect spells. The party do manage at the very end of the fight, after multiple phases, descending through the levels of Markov's mansion, starting at the floor level, going down to a cavern, then going down to an underground lake with the ship, fighting him on the deck of Flint's ship, the Jack Carlo, which, by the way, that name literally came up because one of our players, the player behind Freya, her name's Kyla, she misheard Jackdaw. The party were just throwing out names, and someone threw out Jackdaw from the video game Black Flag, and she thought he said Jack Carlo, and the whole party were like, huh, that's actually not a bad name. And I was thinking, huh, that's a perfectly realistic ship name as well. So, Jack Carlo it is. The party fight on the deck of the Jack, and finally defeat Markov, with Flint laying a bunch of bullets into him, and after he's dead, Eska teleports behind the wyvern and sticks a dagger right into the chest of the dead Markov as she sees the mist appearing in the coffin. That was amazing. It was a great moment. Caroline, Victor, and the rest of Victor's guys meet up with the party on the deck of the ship, and they finally sail off, ending this arc, and they reach level 6. So, retrospective. Location. I think the location was great. I think Engelfall had a lot of missing potential. I only had one random encounter that I thought was pretty cool. It was essentially like a diamond that emanated music. It was a mysterious artifact of very eldritch magics. And I thought that was neat, but it wasn't enough. And it wasn't really world building for the city. It was world building for another void thing, which the party love void Eldritch Lovecraft stuff, so they liked it, but it wasn't specific to the city. Like, that random encounter could have happened anywhere in the world. It could have just happened in the wild, and it would have had the same effect. So, yeah, a little bit disappointed in myself that I didn't have more random encounters to make the city feel more alive, or more interesting NPCs. I think that there were a lot of cool NPCs, though. The party and myself, we all really liked Victor and Caroline. I think those 2 characters ended up being really cool for the campaign. They are going to be recurring NPCs. They're joining the party on this ship, so they're going to stick around, and I'm glad the party liked them. If they didn't, it would not work out. I think that the key to making characters more likable is to just make them interesting and endearing to the party. Making them compatible with the kind of group that your party is really, really important. Chemistry. It's all about chemistry. Caroline and Victor had good chemistry with the party, and I think that's why they worked. I do also think that random NPCs that the party met were cool. They met like this gnome clerk at a spa who was just very tired of her job, and I thought that she was really funny and cute, even tipping her at the end, which, given how my party is with money, that's a big deal. As for the bad guys, I do think I did a good job. Markov and the Witch Mother were good bad guys, but I still think I have a long way to go. I still struggle to build the character of these baddies. The Witch Mother had only 1 session, Markov had 2 sessions to get developed, and that's just not that much time. I don't want them to overstay their welcome, because if they do, it's just going to feel like a recurring bad guy that never becomes interesting. There's nothing worse than a bad guy who does not interest the party popping up over and over and over again. I would rather it be short and sweet for now because they haven't met a proper BBEG. It's all just bad guys in each respective zone. Now obviously, in the last area, they were fighting Tarvaroth, the false serpent, who is a giant, huge sea snake that doesn't talk. It's just a big beast. Whereas Markov and the Witch Mother, they actually speak. They have personalities. I just need more time to develop them, and I need more ways to make them interesting. I do think I did a decent job with Markov, though. I was happy with him. The party hated him, and I think that was good. Meanwhile, the Witch Mother creeped them out right away. So I think I did do something right with them, but I still do think there's some improvement that can be made. Overall, I'm happy with this arc. The party have now reclaimed their vessel. They're going to start using the domain rules in Kingdoms and Warfare to find their own domain and start working against whatever grand conspiracy is taking over the high seas. I am so excited for it. If you guys want to hear more of the story, then please do follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or hit subscribe. If you want to let me know that you enjoyed it, then please do hit that like button. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment, just a social call, to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.